Greetings, witches, and welcome to the Witches Movie Coven. Indeed, it is Wednesday. It is live. It is time for witches to talk about witches and hold black, fluffy goats. Do you have your bling Philip yet? Do you have your Philip unbling Philip yet? historycontrol.com, but I won't start out with a commercial quite yet. Welcome, you guys. Get into that chat room. We want you there. We want your thoughts. We want your opinions on this movie. Who are we? Who are we? I am Patti Negri. I am one of your hosts. You might know me from my regular appearances on Ghost Adventures or my Witch podcast or Bathroom Walls Across America. But let's our co-hosts introduce themselves. Richard-Lael.
That would be me. All hail Richard-Lael. Richard-Lael is one name, not two. If I were just Richard, I would be a. That is right. I am known as the gentleman psychic. I'm a psychic and a medium. I used to be a psychic and a small, but I gained some weight. That I am also known sometimes from Ghost Adventures, but also from University Magicus, and I do readings and I do session seances here in my home in New Orleans.
Thank you. And Courtney. Let's go to the Lord.
That's me. Hi, friend. See what I did there? Okay. I'm Courtney Buckley, ghost bait on Scared and Alone. And I am going to be honest that I am more terrified tonight than I have been in a while, even though I have thoughts about the movie. But I'm nervous, so let's get into it.
Okay, thank you. Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Greene, and I am the author of Lights, Camera, Witchcraft. This is the definitive guide to witches and witchcraft in American movies and television. And so I am also a journalist covering all things occult and witchy, as well as a editor at Llewellyn Worldwide, working with wonderful authors who write about things that are occult and witchy. So yeah, and here I am tonight. No, Courtney, we won't talk about your book ideas on the show. Let's save that for another meeting.
Nobody can. We don't want anybody to steal them because they're that good.
No. Yes, this is. I'm off duty as an editor right now, so we'll talk later.
Thank you. And now you all might think that Jason looks a little different today.
No curly hair.
Even more
so glorious hair, though.
Glorious hair. Yes. Dear friend, occultist, magical girl all around, my Scarlett Amaris is guesting with us for the second time. Welcome, Scarlett. Tell everybody a little bit about you.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be back. I was here when we talked about a movie that I co-wrote called Color Out of Space. I'm a screenwriter and television writer. I just directed my first music video, getting ready to direct my next one. I'm also an author. And a witch, and sometimes I teach mythology as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And today's movie is Ouija. 2014 Ouija. I watched it for the first time last night. We hope that you all watched it. I know some of you I talked to over the week did, but just in case somebody didn't watch it, Richard-Lael, do you have a completely unbiased synopsis of this film?
I do have an unbiased synopsis of this film.
I love the way that
I don't know why everyone's laughing because it's totally unbiased. The story is about a group of, I assume, teenagers that are probably a little bit older than teenagers, but they are teenagers nonetheless, who have decided to go to a cabin in the woods. Because apparently the one is writing a thesis on witchcraft and wants to go to a cabin and has invited her friends. Now, her mother has forbade it, but she did not listen because, again, teenagers think that they know everything. She's a teenager. And they end up by going to the house. The caretaker comes in. The caretaker tries to get them to leave. The caretaker is, however, failing in his ability to get the teenagers to listen. And then he leaves and then mysteriously dies in a car accident after calling the mother to tell. Did I watch the same film?
I don't think you watched the same movie.
No, this is totally different.
Did you watch the 2016 Ouija, the something of evil?
No, that's the 1960s. Like,
no, I watched the 2014 one.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. You might have watched. There's a 2016 one called.
I think it's Ouija: The Return.
Ouija something of evil. There's a 16
No,
one.
I don't think so. Let me look and
Did
see.
you
Everyone is
hold on now? Wait, I have a question. Did you watch The Witch That Came from the Sea?
I may have. Because wait a minute. I mean, in this one, I'm going to tell you this is the film that I watched, where they ended up by going to the cabin of the woods, and they all ended up by being picked off one at a time. And then there was something about the house was a Ouija board, and it was awful paint.
Did you watch
Evil Dead?
No, it was like,
did you watch there's a million Ouija movies. Were they American? Or was it in English?
I think so. Let me just see here. It was in English.
I'm sitting here going,
Ouija Origin of Evil. That's the 2016 one.
That's the prequel.
I don't think that's the one I watched. I don't know what I watched then. Because I
Ouija
thought I
House.
watched
You
Ouija
watched Ouija
before.
House from 2018, Ouija House?
I don't
It
think
sounds
so.
like a
I mean,
Ouija house.
I even rented it on the YouTubes. Let me see what I did here.
The mystery. The Ouija
Wow.
is taking effect here.
this one is modern.
I typed in Ouija 2014.
But that's not what you watched.
Nope.
This is it starts out two young girls, little kids playing with the Ouija board. Then they go up into their teenage years, and one of them had found a board, and then things go awry. But no
Right.
cabins in the woods on this particular film.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this the one that we were supposed to watch?
No,
No.
one.
That's the Ouija experiment. That's a different one. There's a million of them.
Well, then I watched the wrong one, and it was awful. And all I can say is,
Sounded very similar.
all I can say is, in this one, it was awful. It felt so much. It was earlier than COVID, but it felt like a COVID movie. And there were like 5 people total in this, and there was the girlfriend who she made out with the other boyfriend, even though her boyfriend was this weird thing, and then they got possessed by this male witch named Roku. And she goes through the house.
I have to watch this. What movie did we have to figure this out?
I would bet that's Ouija House.
All right, I'm gonna look at. Hold on.
I don't know. I feel I don't know. I thought I watched another Ouija movie before.
Was
and I
Misha
thought
Barton
that
in
one
it?
was the one.
Ouija guys. Ouija guys.
Was Tara Reid in it? Of course, Tara Reid is in
Yes,
it.
Tara Reid was in it. Tara
It's
Reid
Ouija House.
was the young version of her mother.
It's a Ouija House. It's a Ouija House, and I'm watching it. I'm gonna watch it after this. It's free on
It's
Peacock.
so awful. And the only
What
thing
is
I
that?
could think the entire time is because they're possessed, and she's the woman has used her body as a Ouija board. And she goes through, she's like clawing at the walls, and her eyes
God.
are all glazed over, and then she starts banging her head against a wall like I wanted to do in watching this film. And you find out that so she's like, oh, wait a minute. And they start pulling all of the paint off like it's like plastic. Anyway, yeah, that movie was awful. So I'm glad that was not your movie.
We'll have to do that another week, perhaps.
I'm gonna watch it.
I'm gonna put it on
gonna
the
It was
list.
awful. It's
We're on
really
the list.
awful.
All right.
Ouija House. There it
Roku the Witch.
That one.
Roku the Witch. I'm watching it.
Witch.
Could another one of us, maybe Scarlett, since you're a screenwriter, do a unbiased synopsis of this film, just in case somebody didn't watch the correct film?
Okay, I'll do my best.
Or not, or Courtney, or
Okay.
I can do it if you want.
It starts. I mean, you guys can help me out here. So it starts with the girls playing, and they do the little like weird true of heart thing that they say, and then she looks through and sees the thing, and then it shows the girl on her own. Was that Debbie? Debbie's on her own, and yes, and she looks through the planchette, and it says my friend, and she looks through the planchette, And then the planchette like turns her eye this weird color, and then she goes and she hangs herself with the lights, which if you watch further on the movie, every time they show that house again, the lights are still there, which I think is like a really big mistake. I think you call that a goof. And then, so her friends are sad, but then her, what was the other girl's name? Lane? Finds the Ouija board up in her friend's room, and they start talking to it, and then they make friends with the high friend, and the high friend starts to kind of harass them, and then it kind of boils down to she sees this girl with her mouth sewn up, and then she goes and does like a deep dive to figure out what happened in the house, and she goes to a mental institution because one of the people that was in the house is still there, and she gets this story that this girl that was lost is still hidden in the house, and so she goes and she finds the secret room, but they're being harassed by this spirit the whole time, so it's a little disjointed. And then she finds the girl who has her mouth sewn shut. She manages, as everybody's getting attacked by Mother, she manages to like snip open her mouth, only to find out that that girl was really bad and Mother wasn't the bad spirit. And then they have to like overcome the bad sister, and they manage kind of to do so at the last second. So that's what I got out of it.
Perfect.
And everybody dies almost.
Yeah.
And almost everybody dies. All these beautiful little high school children.
How lovely. I love a happy ending.
I love that Richard-Lael watched a Tara Reid horror movie.
It was I was thinking the entire time, this is not horror, this is horrible. It was so bad. It was bad. I'm glad that is not the film we are reviewing.
That is not the film the rest of us watch. But and now that we do understand this film, thank you, Scarlett. That was fabulous. I'm sorry I put you on the spot.
No, it's fun.
Heather, do we have 5 things that people need to know about this film?
We can always find 5 things, no matter the film. So I'm going to do, as usual, we'll start with context. Then I'm going to talk a little bit. Hang on again. Let me get this book here so I can my notes here so I'm not staring off to the side. Context, and then I'm going to look at the production, how the production went, the cast, the producers, notable, and then a little bit about Ouija. So the first is context. This is 2014. This is when a lot of witchy films and paranormal, mostly witchy, but paranormal as well. Any kind of thing linked to the cult was getting popular again. Started about 2011 and then really gained momentum in 2013, 2012, 13, 14, 15. So this movie is landed right in the middle of all of that. When we had Conjuring movies coming back, we had Annabelle movies coming back, we had all of the witch movies and shows like Salem and Coven. You've heard me talk about this period of time. This is when it all came back. So it lands right then, 2014. It was, the production was interesting because they started the idea, Universal and paired themselves with Hasbro, who now owns the Ouija board, to create this Hasbro Ouija board movie in 2008. 2008's a little earlier for this. 2008, the witchy films at that point were still Harry Potter-esque, a little bit more fantasy, a little bit more happy. Vampires and zombies were still sort of mainstream. We're still sort of hanging on as the evil, spooky thing that people were into at 2008. So it's a little early for this, but they jumped in with Hasbro. We're going to do this movie. And by 2009, 2010, they got the writers. They were working on finding directors. By 2011, they still had no directors. This is really a long time when you talk about ideas and properties. And then, for a company like Universal that wants to hit. Then you go on, Hasbro jumps ship. They cancel the whole thing. They don't want to spend the money. So they try to revamp the whole thing to make it just a general Ouija board thing, not using Hasbro, just a talking board spooky movie. Well, that's not going so well. They get a new script writers, new stuff gets added, and then back to Hasbro. They come back with Hasbro. They make a new deal. I guess it's less money. I don't know. They get a new director, a new writer, and Jason Blum, whose Blumhouse stays on. So we wind up with, this movie was supposed to come out in 2013. We see it in 2014. That's a really long time to go over and over and back and forth and back and forth. So usually the longer a span of production on one particular property, the chances are the movie's not going to be very good, generally speaking. That's just generally time. Too much time in the oven, you burn it. That's not every case, but in a lot of cases that is what happens. It's overdone. The cast on this movie, I know all of these faces were recognizable, famous actors and actresses who all of you love and have seen so many
Like Tara Reid.
Everywhere. Yeah, like Tara Reid. There are a lot of them are younger actresses, most of them who are in things here and there. You might have seen Douglas Smith and Percy Jackson. You might have seen, Lynn Shane in Insidious, or you have, Shelley Hounig, who is in Teen Wolf. You have them here. Sierra Hawkins, one of the actresses, was a a stunt person in a ton of films like Hocus Pocus and Annabelle, Conjuring House. So stunt person. So you have they're around doing stuff. But the two notable people we need to point out first, Olivia Cooke, the main character. She was in Ready Player One, and she was in a few other movies, but you might know her if you've watched House of Dragon, which is the House of the Dragon. That is the prequel to Game of Thrones that has been on. She plays Alicent, Queen Alicent, which is where I immediately recognize her from. So that is the main character who plays Lane. So you'll recognize her face. The other person I want to point out is Robyn Lifely. Robyn Lifely, of course, was the main character in the movie Teen Witch that we've reviewed here. She was the Teen Witch. So if anyone recognized she was only on for a few minutes here and there. She is the mother of the girl that dies at the beginning, the blonde-haired girl. But that is Robyn Lifely, of Teen Witch fame, 1998. Do you remember the big hair? So that's who she is. So those are a couple of notable ones. Now let's go to Blumhouse and the producers. So Blumhouse is known for this type of film. They've done a ton of things, and I just wanted to point this out because they do have a formula, and there are a ton of films that they made that are very recognizable Blumhouse films. So let me just name a few off, because why not, right? We needed 5 things. Here's one of the 5 things. So that is Five Nights at Freddy. Has anyone seen Five Nights at Freddy? Five Nights at Freddy.
It was actually really good.
Yeah,
I've seen it. It was interesting. So we have Exorcist Believer, Megan, Lords of Salem, Insidious, The Craft Legacy, which we've done here, Invisible Man, the Purge movies. These are all from the same producer, all from the same production house. So that's really cool. They have a formula. And they kind of know what they're doing. So there are some other films that are probably not so good or not as memorable in their list, but there are a ton that you would recognize by these folks. So finally, I just want to get to the Ouija board itself, really the main character of this movie, which we found out the Ouija board is the main character and has been the main character of many, many films, which can get very, very confusing. You go to look at which Ouija movie we're making. Of course, the fun part about the Ouija is that the Ouija board was first turned into was first commodified. It was first turned into a product in the 1890s. This was during this is a period of time when spiritualism and talking to spirits and talking to ghosts and talking to the dead was becoming increasingly popular. So they took this idea of the board. These three men took the idea of this board and turned it into a product that they then marketed and sold and became extremely popular over the years. Now, the interesting part about this Ouija board is the 3 men, one of them is the one that retained the patent. The other 2 left the company and lost the patent and eventually a brother and several other folks started making other ones. So the main Ouija board, if you look at it, the one that we all know has the main guy, the original guy, William Full. That's him right here. That is the guy who had the patent. He actually didn't come up with the idea. It was actually one of the other guy's sisters, I believe, who was a medium who used it, that gave them the idea to go ahead and make it. They were not spiritualists, these three men. They were not interested in any of it. They didn't believe in it. They were totally just businessmen. All they were doing is trying to make a game and a product they could make money from. Anyway, after lots of fights, this is the guy that eventually kept his name. The other two guys went on. Interestingly enough, one of them created a new company called the Nirvana board. And that board, there's a ton of different names for these boards back then. The Nirvana board was by the Swastika talking board company. So back in the 20s. So you had a lot of weird and interesting boards. There's the ad for it. The Swastika Novelty Company made the Nirvana Magic Swastika talking board. So there's a lot of interesting things about it back then. It was super popular through World War I and beyond. And it really didn't get the amount of negativity until the 70s, until the 60s and 70s. And then, of course, by the 80s and the Satanic Panic, all hell broke loose, like I like to say. And the Ouija board became wrapped up in that. And people really are terrified of this board. I mean, seriously. And to the point where Parker Brothers and now Hasbro, they are very careful when they market it not to include ghosts and stuff, to suggest, to even try. They want to market it like a game, like a child's game. So they avoid that as much as possible. Over the years, they've done that. But Hollywood, of course, loves the idea of this connection to spirit, loves this idea of our fear of it, just like they make scary movies about dolls and scary movies about anything that we might be frightened of. It's a perfect thing for horror movies. And boy, are there so many. Ouija, there's one in the Philippines. There's a Ouija from Egypt. There's a movie called Witchboard from the 80s. There's of course, more recently, we talked about Ouija House. There's Ouija Witch. There's Ouija Castle. There's Ouija Experiment.
Ouija Castle?
Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm not done, Courtney. You're gonna. The best one is yet to come here. Are you ready for this one?
This is a menu, is what I'm hearing.
Ouija Experiment. The Ouija, the Devil's Game. The Ouija, the Origin of Evil. Wait a God. This is it. Ouija Shark.
What?
Yeah, I love that. And it says we're gonna need a bigger board.
Get out.
Yes.
That's the tagline. Awesome.
It gets better. It gets even better. There's a Ouija Shark too.
No. Okay, hold on. I can't. Nobody say anything.
Wait. I got more. Wait a minute. And this.
While you're looking there, just want to comment for a second. Colin, hello, Colin. I was saying swastikas are becoming frighteningly popular again recently. We actually thought about this, but remember, this swastika company was before Nazis. It had nothing to do with what they became.
And thank you, Patti, for saying that. This is before any of that politics happened. It was before it was commandeered by any kind of political movement. So this was just directly using it to link it to Hindu and Indian spirituality, which is why they called it Nirvana. Absolutely 100%. And there's actually a lot of spiritual witch movies from the silent era that you will see the swastika in. And again, those are linking it to their people had a real interest in folk magic and spiritualism and spirituality from other countries back then. And that was what the swastika represented until a few decades later when it changed hands, unfortunately.
Okay. I cannot wait. We have to stop everything because I have Ouija Shark. I looked it up. I have Ouija Shark. I have the trailer is playing silently on my second screen over here. It's mind-blowing. They filmed it clearly on a phone. A piece of plywood washes up with letters on it, and then they use it, and then a glowing shark head emerges from the Ouija board.
The Ouija board that came from the sea, Courtney.
Yes, this is the best movie I've ever seen, and it's so bad, it's trying to shut down my computer. It's telling me it's telling me I can't load it because it's too glorious to look at.
There
And then
are
I just
so many of those
Sorry.
shark movies. It's
That's
unbelievable.
my favorite. I love them. I love
Yeah.
them so much. Shark Exorcist. Don't even talk. I can't.
Oh, I know. We were like, oh, we're going to write this ghost shark movie. And there was a bunch of writers here in Hollywood. And we were always joking about it, only to find out there's been 4 of them made already.
Yeah, there can never be enough. There can never be enough.
That's
But
amazing.
I will be watching Ouija Shark as soon as we're done here. So nobody talk to me afterwards.
The
because
tagline of it is, we're going to need
we're
a
gonna need a
board."
bigger board. Yeah.
That is
so great.
Courtney, I just want to let you know that I always attempt in every single week either to find something connected to sharks or to musicals just for you.
I love that. I love everything about it. Also, this is like my mind is being blown because between Ouija House, which is like amazing, I'm gonna watch that, but like the glowing shark head, not only did the glowing shark head emerge from Ouija, guys, I'm watching all of them. The glowing shark head emerged from the Ouija board, but then I saw it chasing in someone's backyard, just like Velocipaster. They filmed it on a phone in someone's yard. I'm done. I can't watch anything else. I can only watch this from now on. Look at it. No, but if you have to see if that's the movie poster, it doesn't do it justice as usual. The glowing shark head emerging from, I want it tattooed on my body. I'm beside myself. I'm beside myself.
You're welcome.
There may not be any hexing tonight. I don't know.
No, there can't be. There cannot be. But also, can I interject real quick? A side note back to the topic. I have a piece of Ouija history that I would like to add into Heather's Ouija history. As a Salem tour guide, the Parker brothers had a manufacturing complex there in Salem. Yeah, I was going to ask you to hold it up because I have the same board as you, because at the bottom it says that it was made in Salem, Massachusetts, because the Ouija board was in fact produced in Salem, Massachusetts for a period of time. And so I also have the same board.
I have a question.
In the Northeast originally.
I have a question. I have many of them, but you were saying how it's patented. One guy, the William Fold, got it, but it's not the name, because I have my favorite, my Barbie pink board. It does not say William Feld, so other people can use the name.
Well, no, it is their name. So the Ouija, according to the story I read, is that they came up with the name, which was, I was trying to wonder why they called this talking board the Ouija board. They said the board told them. That they asked the board what its name was, and the board told them. Now these guys didn't believe in any of this stuff, so who knows what they were doing, but that's why it's called a Ouija, and it is patented with the name. And Parker Brothers, now Hasbro owns it, but it doesn't necessarily always say Fold on it. It's not. This is just the traditional. This one's from the 70s.
Yeah.
It's going to glow in the dark.
There's a little something that I would like to add. You alluded, Heather, to the fact that the sister-in-law or whoever it was, one of the women was a medium who had helped them. And as it turns out, when they went into the patent office, the patent officer said, "If you can tell me something that I need to know, I'll grant the patent." 10 minutes later, he came out. He was white as a sheet. He'd patented. But as it turns out, this woman was wearing a locket, and inside the locket was a 19th century women's rights advocate whose name was Ouija. And it is thought that when they asked who is here, it was actually misspelled. Instead of Ouija, it came up as Ouija.
Ooh, women's rights advocate.
Yep. So it's, it has an interesting history, of course. Divination through boards and stuff like this is, who knows how long people have done this kind of stuff. It's part of folk magic, not specifically this board, but the idea of it, the divination with it. So, but it became a game, and that's what I had one as a kid, and this one I've gotten since, and this is the standard. But it's Parker Brothers was bought by Hasbro in 91, 92, and so now they're produced by Hasbro, and they just try to avoid connecting any marketing with the occult at all. They try to keep it, it's just fun and games.
That's
But
I saw one at Five Below, and it was spelled Ouija, WEEGEE.
Yeah.
And I thought that was exciting.
they get around it that way.
It's a game. It comes with a whole different set of cards. You play a card game. It has a carrying briefcase in pink vinyl. It's fabulous. But yeah, I think somebody needs to be brave and make one for what it is. Just saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right, you can find them. People make them, like artisans make them and stuff. They just don't.
I have one. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this without ruining my whole life.
Talking boards is what they are.
Mhm.
That's the generic name.
And
This is handmade.
from what I
and it has serial
understand,
killers on it.
That's
love it.
beautiful.
Yeah. Who are those people?
What I understand is the
They're
Fox
serial
sisters
killers.
in the
Oh, that's serial killers. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
H.H. Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
Can I talk about H.H. Holmes and the Ouija for a second, and Blumhouse?
Yeah.
So I was on a show called Elevator way back about I don't know, maybe 10 years, 2014 maybe. I think.
Which
maybe
I
when it was.
watched before I knew you.
I was on every single episode excepting for the first one, and I got to play H.H. Holmes, the serial killer, and that is also where a talking board actually talked to me in a weird way. I guess I'll tell you the quick synopsis. I had a group of people at my house for a seance. They didn't have anyone they wanted to contact, just anyone randomly. So I was living in Pasadena, and we asked this board, we said, okay, spirits come in and who is here? So the board spelled out JP. The woman to my right said, JP Morgan. I went, no. This is Jack Parsons. He lived down the street. I know Jack Parsons. I said, hello, Jack. Tell us something so that we know that it's you. And the board spells out, I think it was something like CRJ9K. And I went, I have no idea what that is. Fellow across the way said, well, CRJ9K, couldn't that be like 9,000? Couldn't it be a rocket ship or something, a rocket engine? I don't know. I'm not a rocket scientist. I said, okay, Jack, welcome. I said, what would you like to say? And he spells out H.H. Holmes on the board. And the woman to my right said, the serial killer? And I went, well, I mean, I played H.H. Holmes on TV. So maybe actually Jack is actually trying to communicate with me. It's a weird thing, but it's my house and he's been here before. So maybe he's trying to communicate with me. And I said, Jack, what do you want to tell me? And he spelled out B-O-O-K. And I said, yes, you're right. I'm supposed to be writing a book. I have been trying to write that book for a very long time. I have some chapters done, but I am still not anywhere where I need to be. Anyway, that said. So we close the session. We say goodbye. We release them. They go out. And I Google Jack Parsons and CRJ 9000. And it turns out that there was a jet propulsion engine that was inspired by his works. He died in 1950. This came out a few years later, but they were inspired by his works. And I went, okay, well, that makes sense. And so I looked up Jack Parsons, H.H. Holmes book, and I found Rocket to the Morgue, 1940. I think it was about 43, and it was one of those film noir, detective dreadfuls, and closed door murder mystery. It was penned by Anthony Boucher, whose pen name was H.H. Holmes, and in it that he meets Jack Parsons, a thinly veiled L. Ron Hubbard, and they belong to the society, the Manana Society. They're futurists. They write for tomorrow. And there's a tagline. He says, yeah, we write for the future. We write for tomorrow, but also because we get people coming in here all the time saying, I've got a great idea for a book. Oh yeah, when are you going to write it? Manana? You're going to write that book, Manana? Well, I still haven't written that book. That's the name of it.
Very good.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Very fun.
I think we all have some amazing Ouija stories. Let's talk about the movie a little bit, and then go and interchange it with all of our little Ouija stories. So, who wants to talk first about who actually watched the movie? Talk about the movie. Anybody have thoughts? Courtney.
I watched it. I fell asleep for a few minutes a couple times, but I watched it. Here's the thing. So I thought I saw this when it came out. I don't think I did because I didn't remember any of it. And some of the jump scares got me, mostly because I was tired, so I was a little on edge anyway. I didn't mind it. It was silly. it was ridiculous, but it was a horror movie, and it wasn't like, it was borderline bad enough to be good. Like, you know, the premise was interesting. I didn't mind it. The problem though came after, when I was finished with the movie and it was dark out and it was dark in my house, and I started to realize that all of the rules that they set for what not to do when you're playing with the Ouija board, that I have done. And I think you all watched, right? You all watched this realization happen in real time in our group chat, where I was like, uh-oh, yikes, I might have done some of these things. And then I started looking around my dark apartment, and like, I have these spooky dolls, and I have this haunted Roomba, and I have Ouija boards everywhere, and, like, and bones and things. And then I was like, wow, I'm terrified, and I can't look around any corners. So the movie, while it wasn't the best horror movie I've ever seen, scared the crap out of me today, because it just did. So I have to be on board with that.
Good. That's great. That is good.
And you would have been really terrified had you have seen Tara Reid.
Right. Well, so there was a movie, I forget what it was. I think it came up because I love those kinds of movies. It was a witch movie, and I feel like I clicked on it because I thought, great, if I'm gonna watch this, and if it's stupid, I'm gonna suggest it for Witches Movie Coven to get you all back for the awful 70s movies that you make me watch. And I turned it on.
I love those 70s movies.
I know you do. It might have even been like a Ouija witch or something. I don't know. It was something ridiculous. But all of a sudden, Tara Reid came on. Like 3 minutes in, I was like, nope, absolutely not. I turned it off. I'm not going to watch it.
And she speaks highly of you, Courtney.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm not saying I don't like her. I'm just saying it's not the right kind of movie that I was looking for if Tara Reid is in it.
I will go next. Mine will be short and sweet, because my review is going to be the exact same thing. I didn't mind it. It kept my interest. I didn't fall asleep. The jump scares got me. I didn't mind it. Yeah, we have our t-shirt. You know, I got spooky, and I love to get spooky, and I don't often get spooky during film. So they had, I guess that's what Blumhouse does well.
Yeah.
That's the horror part of it.
Right.
So that's my whole thing. I enjoyed watching the kids. I watched the teen movie thing, and they all get killed, and nope. And the cabin, no, there's no cabin. So anyway,
there's no peeling of the Ouija walls either. So
there's an old house with a basement and an attic and a secret room. I mean, you added all that in. I mean,
right.
I love the secret room part. That's
the furnace.
Part. Yeah, that
furnace. And a furnace.
A furnace that, may I dare say, rivals the one from Home Alone in its fear factor. So
that is good. So, all right, who wants?
The one I saw had yellow paint over white walls. That was scary. That was the scariest part. It was like this ugly, mustardy yellow over everything, and I had to say, you know what? I would be peeling that paint off the walls too. That's the one I want.
I'll go next.
Scarlett.
I thought it was okay. Can we have that on a t-shirt? It was okay. I don't know that I would watch it again. It had the pacing was okay on it, but it had one of my pet peeves where it doesn't really explain the rules of magic very well, like the rules of how the spirit worked, because it was like, okay, it can attack you now, okay, it's gonna possess you now, okay, now you've got color, covered over eyes, okay, now it's sewed your mouth. Like, it was a little like, oh, okay, you know what, nobody's gonna give a shit, so nobody's gonna care, and so we're just going to like jump in and give you exactly what we know you want. And it made money, it did well, and so I think I've certainly watched things that I hate more. But I also know the horror formula.
We need that on a shirt. We need that on a shirt.
And it is, for me, and I like 70s horror, and like, I write horror, and it's my passion. It was a little formulaic for me, but that's okay. That's probably the worst thing that I would say about it.
Good. Beautiful. Thank you.
I agree with with all of these. I enjoyed it for a very light float through a horror movie is pretty much what it was. Very, very predictable. You know, going in that the lady and the lady is a misdirect. You know, she plays the two iconic formulaic roles. One is trying to figure out the occult stuff. We've got to go to some old person in an institution, whether they're a professor or in a bookstore or whatever. So she plays that role, but then equally as canned and predictable is she's not the good role. She's the bad one, and she does the misdirect. That was, you know, it was just too simple. It was, yes, very much light. It glossed over everything. There was very little explanation for anything, but it did that well enough to keep my interest, well enough to get me through the movie without falling asleep or being irritated. It skipped detail and left out citations and all the things that it needed, good enough to like I think Scarlett said, is it just said, okay, we're gonna just skim the surface and go and give you what you need and get out. And that's pretty much what it did. And didn't leave anything hanging until the end, which irritated me because I'm like, this movie's not getting a second or third one, so why do that? So, there's no need for it, but you know, you got to leave them hanging because potentially a second one could be picked up or a third one. Who knows? Anchorman took how many years before they picked up?
Yeah, isn't there a sequel? There's a prequel and a sequel, I think.
I didn't think there was. I was looking.
The Origins of Evil is the prequel. And then I'm pretty sure there's a second one.
Oh, I don't know. Either way, it was kind of like, you know, it just didn't feel like it needed it to me. And I listed all the Ouija movies, but I didn't dive in to find out which one was connected to which at this point. So maybe there are more movies. I don't know why. It doesn't have a saga that really
I don't know why.
It's good. It was good as a standalone. I think it would have been fine as a standalone, but you know, you got to bring in the money if the money's could come in.
My favorite thing that you said is about that lady being the misdirect. And for me, the misdirect was not that I saw any part of that plot coming, because I was too busy screaming out loud, "It's the Insidious lady." And then I was focused on that.
Insidious lady, that's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't think we're going to have Jason's movie minute, so we should instead talk about Ouija, our own Ouija stories, because people actually have been asking about that. But before we do you have any quotes, Courtney?
Actually, I do. I have a couple, but this wasn't a very quotable movie, so I don't have a lot. However, having said that, I feel like I need to tell my snippet of a Ouija board story to incorporate why these quotes are important to me and why I'm terrified to say them out loud. So if I can do that real quick, so let me read the quote because, and then I'll explain. So I said earlier that, okay, let me get to my notes up. The rules. There's the rules of playing the Ouija board. Okay, so you can never play alone. You can never play in a graveyard, and you always have to say goodbye. To start, you circle the board once for each player, and then you say the same. Okay. Well, in chatting with you guys via our group text, I realized not only have I played alone, which was filmed for Scared and Alone, I played with a Ouija board in the attic of the Little Witch House. After having a terrifying day and an attachment, I then played with the Ouija board by myself. Then also when I was younger, and I'll lie under oath about this because this was super illegal, I played a Ouija board in a graveyard in a place. The graveyard was super haunted. It was nighttime, not allowed to be there. Went in anyway. Played the Ouija board. We could hear somebody walking in circles around us, but you could see everything. So there wasn't actually anybody there. We could hear somebody walking in circles around us. So we quickly, and it kept saying, "Dead, death, done. Dead, death, done." And we were like, we're dead, death, done with this. So goodbye. Thank you so much. And we ran. And then this cemetery was like 45 minutes from where I lived. So I got all the way home to realize that my cell phone wasn't in my pocket. And my cell phone was not in my car. And then we called my cell phone like 73 times and didn't hear it ringing at all. And then we had to drive 45 minutes at 3 a.m. back to the cemetery. And when I got out of the car, I stepped like one step into the cemetery and saw my cell phone on the ground. So it must have fallen out of my pocket while I was running. I picked up the cell phone. I opened it. I had no missed calls at all. And when I took one step out of the cemetery, my cell phone started going off with all of the missed calls that we had called looking for it, like buzzing, 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 buzzing. So it was a crazy time. Whatever. We made choices. Choices were made. Things happened. But as I'm recounting this, it makes me very scared to now be alone in my house and then say my next quote, which is the saying. And it is, as friends we've gathered, hearts are true. Spirits near we call to you. Is someone here with us? Right? Do you remember the time the Richard-Lael pillow ran away on the show? Like, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm so afraid. I'm scared and alone in my own house. Okay. Anyway, then there was one funny quote. Sarah said, "How are you even supposed to talk to someone using a board game? I mean, yo, can you hear me? Signal's really bad. I only got like one bar in here." I thought that was funny. And then there was two that I kind of thought were a little profound. Lane said in the beginning, "You just don't know when it's going to be the last time you get to talk to someone." And I think that's important to remember. And then at the end, she said, "I guess you never really feel like you get to say goodbye, and maybe that's okay." And then Sarah responds and says, "Maybe there are no goodbyes." Not really. And I feel like that gave me a little bit of chills, and it's, reminds us of what we do and why we do it.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
those are my quotes and my Ouija board stories. And now I'm terrified. Goodbye.
You always say goodbye. You always say goodbye.
That's the one I do. Even without being told the rules by the Ouija movie, I knew that was the rule and I did it. But I'm gonna put my sunglasses on in case.
Can I just quickly, the rules change per movie, and that freaked me out in this movie because after watching Agatha and they do the Ouija and that one thing, one of the rules was you cannot take your fingers off the planchette.
God, she did, and she did that in the movie.
She did it multiple, and then they pick it up and they hold it and they put it back down. They put your hands back on. I'm like, now I'm freaked. What's gonna happen? But in this movie, that was not a rule. So
I didn't know the rules because again, the directions are that it's a game. I have been safely, mostly playing with a Ouija board since I was 8 years old. I never had the rules. I never said that saying. I don't think I used to even do the goodbye. I have got real spirit communication. And I've had 2 scary times with it. To me, my only rule, be funny, be a skeptic, but you have to don't be disrespectful because that's what always happens. Don't be So there's a house in my neighborhood. It's my neighbor down the street. I have a little 1920s neighborhood. And this house was built by Charlie Chaplin, as many were, for one of his many girlfriends. And it was a super party house, which can call in dark stuff for party house in the 20s and 30s and 40s. Just crazy Hollywood party house. And then in the 60s, the Rolling Stones manager bought it. So the Stones stayed there, Mamas and Papas, Graham Parson. Again, party house. Beautiful party house. And then they moved out. And then the person who invented the real life sex doll moved in. Got too spooky for him. There was so much weird energy. And he moved out. And then my neighbor, Marilyn Manson, moved in. It was my neighbor for 7 years. And he recorded in the dirt basement, always a dirt basement. And anyway, I was hired to do a seance for this. It's called the Mary Astor House, to see what it looks like a haunted house. It looks like it was built by Masons. There's literally a compass painted in the floor, all this leaded glass, all this sacred geometry, everything. But this one kid, and it was really young people, young people, when you're past puberty but not too far into your 20s, have so much life force. That's why you get all that poltergeist stuff then. And so it was a table full of these it was a 4-camera shoot, so that was a pretty big shoot. And so this one kid kept getting disrespectful, and I'm feeling the tension going, this is not cool. But then something really cool happened. The French doors flew open and everybody's screaming, the camera. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. The producer side of me. But I felt this tension. That happened again. The French doors, he said something stupid in the French doors. This spirit was getting really cranky. I'm trying to talk to him. And then he said something else really stupid. And not the doors, but the speakers, old school. It was how big can your radio speakers be versus how little can they be? That's the house. That is the house.
Just up the street.
It's so spooky.
From my house. That's the Mary Astor, everybody. And I love the new guy there. He's a famous guy too. Anyway, so the speaker came on, white noise, and it sounded exactly like a spirit box, like anybody does all the paranormal stuff like that we all do. It wasn't plugged in, but we didn't notice it. I'm feeling this tension building, and this crazy stuff's happening. We're using the Ouija board. We got down to something that really dark had happened in the 1930s in this basement where Marilyn had been recording. And the kid said something again, really ridiculously stupid. And not him, but the cameraman facing him, now a dear friend, Laurent Malachi, burst into flames, you guys. Be up his back like angel wings of fire. He was not standing in front of a fireplace or a candle, just up. His shirt burnt off him like it was a polyester or nylon. It was heavy cotton. It should not have went poof. I'm watching the blistering on his back. And everybody, 2 cameras caught spontaneous combustion. One camera started filming like the ceiling or the floor. You test the metal and strength of a cameraman in a crowded room bursting into flames, like, yay. And the poor guy who was wondering why everybody is screaming at him and pointing at him. And me, cold witch medium Patti, becomes medic Patti, which I am. I'm EMT1 certified cardiac tech. Drop and roll. And I'm calling in my protectors to shut this down. I'm like, I don't care. I've never stopped a shoot in my life, but this is not okay. This is serious. This is not okay. You cannot. But the guy who caught on fire was a super skeptic, by the way. He's like, I'm okay. No, I have a sweater. I'll put the sweater on. The kid was no longer going to be an issue at all. He was in the corner covering. It's like, oh, okay. Not a smart aleck anymore. Okay. But 3 weeks, and we finished, and it got even crazier. The most crazy stuff I've ever experienced. Glasses flying. They tried to push the cameraman off the cliff again. But 3 weeks later, the cameraman goes, Patti, look at my back. And where I'd seen the blistering, it totally, you guys, looked like he had went and got a tattoo of a dragon. Open mouth, sharp teeth, winged heads into the shape of a serpent. And that is the exact energy I called in, not this, shut down the seance. I work dragon energy, crossroads, man. And I'm looking at him in his back, and I'm like, oh my God, you have a tramp stamp of a dragon on your back. That is the coolest thing I have ever seen. He thought so too. He actually was so intrigued. They haven't done it yet. If they do, Margot Robbie needs to play me. He wrote a film with Stephen Norrington, the guy who wrote The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and the Blade series, about this TV medium who did every TV show, and then filming another one. And then a portal opens. It's called The Portal. And then it turns into one of those funny, scary things. But I did. And this is something to know for horror films. Again, they haven't done it yet because they keep getting projects. But I sat down with him for 5 hours, and I'm like, Laurent, you can't say that on camera. He's like, but you said that. I know, but that does something energetically. You don't want to be one of those cursed horror films, dude. It happens all the time. Energy, spirits, ghosts, whatever, doesn't know the difference of an actor reciting lines and somebody really doing this thing. So if they ever do it, we just made them sound spooky or mystical, but they're not going to do something that opens up, a portal to hell. That was my
and it will star Tara Reid.
And I've never been more excited that I own a pair of Patti's dragon power panties in my life.
Yes, you have to. Dragon power.
I own them because now I know. Now I know about the dragon.
Now you know about dragons are my biggest protection. That's my form of magic. No, I've had my ribs broken by the Black Dahlia pushed into. I hadn't set up my protectors. So you do have to. I know somebody in this chat room was talking about Ouija and a fear. You just have to know what you're doing and who you invite in. You don't let anybody in your front door. You maybe shouldn't let anybody in your Ouija board.
Yeah, like, because I've played with hundreds of boards, and every once in a while you get something through that's like cursing at you and being rude, and you just shut it down. You're like, no, guess what? I'm not going to, like, and then you clear the room out and you can start again,
Yeah. Our realm of existence. I believe that. So that's the only one also. That's my biggest story. Who else has a great Ouija story before we vote?
I have one.
Oh, Scarlett.
I have a good one. So many years ago when I was living in Europe, and had just started in my screenwriting career, we were like searching around for this short that we wanted to shoot kind of in this place that we're at, this very small village, like in this very haunted village, in the very haunted mountains in the Pyrenees. And so we pulled out the glow-in-the-dark Ouija board and said, what should we shoot? And it said, you should do The Mother of Toads by Clark Ashton Smith, which is another weird fiction writer like Lovecraft. And I was like, but Mother of Toads is medieval. And it was like, well, you should update it. And you should start it at the Mirepoix market. And basically gave us the first scene. And so then I took it from there and wrote the first short of it. And 2 weeks later, it got picked up for Theater Bazaar. And it was, I think we shot it like 8 months later. And then Theater Bazaar got picked up for a bunch of different film festivals. But yeah, and this story was also featured in Fangoria. But yes, it was true. Like, we did actually get the first scenes of the script and the idea from the script from the Ouija board. So it was very useful in that kind of way.
That's awesome.
That's
so did you give
amazing.
writing credit to Ouija board?
I know, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
No, but I think that I'd like to respond to somebody in the chat said they want a real Ouija board. And I think we could probably respond to that a little bit, because I don't know, I don't know that there is an official real Ouija board. I know a lot of artists who make them out of various types of woods. And if I was to get one that was not a Parker Brothers Hasbro one like this, which this is the one I have, I would find, like Courtney has, I would find somebody who was an artist. I would get one made out of a natural material, a wood maybe that I had an affinity for, or that worked very well with spirits, that was positive, and do some research on those correspondences and get one that was made by hand by someone. And I think also if you could do it yourself. You get something and just write it with a pen down the letters. It's just like any other divination tool. So I don't know that real Ouija board exists in those terms.
I mean, I've written the letters in a circle and then like on a very, very old table in Ireland, and then used a crystal glass, and it worked amazingly well.
And that's like something I was thinking of that I wanted to really address too, is like after we did that episode of Scared and Alone and I had used the Ouija board, it was just one time out of many that I've been inundated with messages that is like, oh my God, be careful. And oh, those are evil and whatever. And as someone who grew up hearing that, don't ever touch a Ouija board. It's evil. It's terrible. I do have Ouija crocs. The Ouija crocs are on Mystery Control. They're behind me somewhere. But as someone who grew up hearing that, and then actually, like my first experience with a Ouija board, I invited something in that I shouldn't have, and I learned my lesson. But that had nothing to do with the board, because I could go out and make something from a rock and a twig outside that would do the exact same thing. It has nothing to do with the board itself. So there's nothing to be afraid of. It's a tool. It's your intentions that go behind it, and that's the biggest thing to remember. And so if you're going to play with a Ouija board, have fun, play with it, but know yourself and know your boundaries and set those boundaries, and that's all you have to be worried about. And if it doesn't feel good, then stop and shut it down, and that's it.
Very well said. I love that. Yes. Yeah, I've got some beautiful. My favorite one, but you can't carry it. I've got a Ouija board carved out of a gravestone in from Germany.
Wow!
Because in Germany, and I'm like, is that sacrilegious? But in Germany, you only get 25 years to have your gravestone, and then they're trash. So somebody else goes there. So versus being a sacrilege thing, I made something beautiful out of it.
That's incredible.
That's wow.
But they built a beautiful case for it. On the other side, it says something family, whatever, died in peace. and this side's a completely beautiful carved Ouija board. So, but it doesn't go on a plane. It weighs 100,000 pounds. So, all right, it is time to vote. Ouija, not Richard-Lael. Well, you could
Vote yours.
So one's up, one's down, or is it planchettes up, planchettes down?
I don't have my planchette here or my Crocs, but I'll do.
I guess this is up then.
Oh, wait, I'll give it a bone.
Is there someone
I
here
have
who
an
would
owl.
like to vote for me? Is there someone who would like, you know what?
H
Go up.
I F R I E N D.
I'm
Wow.
Okay.
up. This is unanimous ups. All right.
I
you
haven't
guys-
seen it, so keep that in mind.
That's true.
You guys in the chat room, we want to know one's up, planchettes up, one's down.
Thank you. That being said, that's very nice of you to say.
They're being very quiet today. Anyway, before we running late, we've gone over already. What's our next week's movie?
Is it Ouija Shark?
No, I'll
Oh.
put that on the gift. It's a 2000. It's from 2000. So it's called The Gift.
Does it star Tara Reid?
No, it
Does it star
doesn't.
Tara Reid?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, then I want to make
For
sure so
everybody
that I'm not
watching
watching the
rest
wrong
of The
movie.
Gift. There is another movie called The Gift. There might even be more than one other movie. So this is
Richard-Lael.
2000.
Can I ask
And
a
there's
question?
no ocean or sharks involved.
Can I ask a question? Do you guys ever do like Bava or Fulci or any of those movies? Like the 70s horror movies?
Yeah,
like the
we do.
Lucio Fulci or Mario Bava? Okay.
Yes.
Send
I love
me
70s
a list
movies.
and I'll put
I
some
love
on there.
them.
Okay, that would be
We can do
fantastic.
70s.
Our
Courtney
only
loves
rule
the
is
70s
you have to be able to watch it on streaming.
Yeah.
It has to be
Yeah.
us and our watchers and listeners have to be able to watch it.
Also, Scarlett's
Hey,
I've watched
yes.
Things I've Hated More t-shirt is on the website already. So head over to mysterycontrol.com, get a Bling Phillip, get that t-shirt. I have a sweatshirt on there that says "Don't make me hex you."
Okay.
So
We don't even have time
need
to
that.
talk about what's going on. So just come back next week. Tell your friends, like us. If you're anywhere near Hanover, Virginia, come see me this weekend at the Hanover Tavern Inn. Like us, follow us. And we have one more thing to do because we have 2 minutes over. 1, 2, 3.